Well, in your local election headquarters, Board of Elections, now Ohio's largest county, under administrative oversight by the Secretary of State's office.
Yeah, investigators found an error during this week's election that allowed 3 people to vote twice. So how does that happen? Well, NBC4's Jamie Ostroff is going to show us and tell us what the Secretary of State believes happened here in Franklin County.
Yeah, I mean, you ask the big question. Of course, there's still a lot of questions remaining here as to how this happened. But according to a letter from Secretary of State Frank LaRose to the Franklin County Board of Elections, 3 people were allowed to vote twice because the voting software that keeps track of voter records didn't fully update between the early voting period and Election Day. The letter says the same software issue even happened in 2020. Now, while steps were taken last year to prevent people from voting twice, that did not happen this year.
The board continues to prove that it is incapable of adequately managing its vendors and critically important election administration processes, wrote Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose to the Franklin County Board of Elections Thursday. Moving forward, the board has to check in weekly with the Secretary of State's office until LaRose is convinced the board can properly administer elections. According to LaRose's letter, a voter contacted his office saying they'd voted twice in this month's election. That voter cast an early ballot, then came back on Election Day with their spouse who still needed to vote. A poll worker told the voter their previous ballot hadn't been counted, so they cast another one. Investigators learned it happened because the county's e-poll books, which track voter history records, didn't update quickly enough between the early voting period and Election Day. As a result, records for 13,604 voters hadn't been updated in time. 3 of those people voted twice, LaRose wrote. The letter also says the same thing happened during the last election with the same e-poll book software. But to avoid double voting that time, the board used paper poll books. LaRose said that did not happen this week.
No one from the Franklin County Board of Elections would go on camera to talk about this issue, but a spokesman told me over the phone the e-poll books didn't update between early voting and Election Day last year because the massive amount of early voting data overwhelmed the system. Remember, there was a lot of enthusiasm there. So they prepared ahead of time before Election Day with those paper poll books. Then this year, they installed some new technology they thought would fix the problem, but that problem of slow loading still occurred at about 20 of the more than 320 polling locations in Franklin County. The Board of Elections still trying to figure out why that happened.